So today I'm doing my first mod on the Talaria XxX, a brand new set of tires. Not to say that these supermotors aren't good, they're really good for somebody that's only commuting on the road, but for me, I'm trying to go on-road, off-road, gravel, dirt, grass, everything, and these tires will not cut it. If you try to do that on these tires, you will wash out. So that being said, I was going to pick out the Shinko 241s. I ended up going with a set of Kenda 262s. This is 2.75 front and rear. This is going to be sick. I'm going to try to do this as a quick install video, show you guys how to install it on the front wheel. I'll follow up on the back wheel and basically give you guys my first impressions on how these tires feel compared to the originals that are on the bike. So with that being said, the things you'll need today will be a bucket, 2 pry bars, your Allen keys, baby powder, 2 tires, and a pump. Let's get started. So one thing to mention, if you have a bike like this, get a bike stand just like this. It'll make it so much easier in order to access different points of this bike to be able to do repairs or mods. So with that being said, you're gonna need a 5mm and an 8mm Allen key. The 5mm is to do these pinch bolts on either side. You're gonna loosen these up before loosening the through axle. So let's loosen up a 5mm over here, and I'll do each one as a quarter turn. I wanna loosen them up all evenly, basically. Okay, now that the pinch bolts are loose, you loosen up your through axle. It's gonna be on the brake side. This little bolt should come out pretty easy. Put that where we don't want to lose it. Through axle comes out. And the wheel is free. Now this is where our bucket comes in handy. You're going to use the bucket to be able to support the tire. Putting the wheel on there, you're going to then gain access to the valve stem. You want to let out all the air to help unseat the bead off of the rim. Now while you're doing this, make sure you do not touch this rotor at all. You don't want to get any debris, greasy fingers, any of that on there. So make sure you stay clear of that. They do make covers for this, just in case you're trying to be as cautious as you possibly can be. So now that I got the air basically out, I'm going to push on the sidewall and make sure that you kind of hear the pop. It's pretty much free now, but you'll hear the pop of the bead come off of the rim. Still got a little bit of air in there. All right, so now that we have the tire free from the rim, we're gonna use our pry bars to be able to pry the tire off. Now they make all different types of pry bars. These are the ones I ended up picking up from Harbor Freight. I have a good background with changing flats on most all bicycles, so I have a good idea on how to not pinch the tube. They do make different pry bars that have different material on the end of it here to help, I guess, stop you from pinching the tube. And they also have different spoons in order to pop the tire off of the rim. So let me show you what I do. You take one of the pry tools, pinching the tire back, pushing the pry tool into the rim area and scooping the back side of the tire without pinching the tube. Next, you put the next spoon down and you go furthermore and furthermore until the tire is completely off of the rim. So now that the tire is de-beaded from the rim and over top of one side of the rim, you want to loosen up the little nut on your tube if you have one. This one right here is actually a 12mm. So usually some of these just come finger tight, or this little nut is just a little snug, and this will allow us to gain access to getting the tube out of the tire and then taking the rest of the tire off the rim. So now that the tube is out, try to pinch the tire together. You'll see a little bit of a gap formulate between the tire and the rim. You should just be able to push it right off the rest of the rim. That easy. Now, this is a good time to inspect your rim as well. I can already tell you that this little rim strip is not lined up fully, which can be a problem down the road. If you have some type of pinch flat, it could be led to something like this right here. So I'm just gonna move these little pieces over, make sure they're nice and lined up. And you'll notice that it has like a baby powder feel, and that's the reason why we're gonna be using the baby powder here, because it's gonna make it so much easier to get the tube in that new tire. All right, so same as we did before, rotor side down inside the bucket. We're gonna lay the tire down. And this one is not directional. Kind of the same exact thing as the Shinko 241s. They're not directional, which is nice. This is a 275, which is a nice hefty boy. So we're gonna easily just prop one on. You can push it on from the inside of the tire. All right, so now that we have the tire on halfway, what we're gonna do now is coat up our tube with some baby powder. The baby powder is gonna allow us to be able to maneuver this tube in there, and that way the valve stem sits straight within the hole. So let's lather this up a little bit. Also be sure you keep it clear from the rotor. So I'm gonna lather up my hands and basically rub my hands over top of the tube. Next thing to do is find the valve hole, and I will tuck the tube in valve hole to the valve stem. Makes it pretty easy to then just navigate it through from there. Now installing, you want to make sure you use the pry bars or spoons, whatever you guys choose, to be able to put this tire on as easy as possible. You want to pinch the back side in order to help push the tire closer together to make it easier to go on the rim. You want to finagle and finesse this through the whole process. Do not force it. Don't make it harder on you than it should be. And that way you will not have any scratches on the rim. So after you have it all seated up like this, you'll notice that it looks like there's scratches. There's not. This is just all baby powder. And we are good to go. So this is the front one. Let's air it up. Make sure it's properly seated. In order to properly seat it, let me show you exactly what to do. So I wanted to take a quick pause before I show you how to properly air up and seat the front tire. I wanted to basically do a comparison between the two tires because it is worth noting that there's going to be a vast difference in the riding capabilities of this bike, how it overall feels, and the standover. Just looking at the sidewall height and the tread pattern, this bike is going to feel way different in my personal opinion. I feel like it's worth noting, and I don't have a scale with me. I kind of wish I did, but they feel like they're about the same weight. It feels a little bit heavier, just a little bit, but they're pretty close to the same weight. So with that being said, how I air up and seat up a tire. Now you can use a compressor. A lot of people use compressors, and this is maxed out at 33 pounds. So basically I want to use a hand pump so I can basically every 5 to 10 pounds that I put in there, I can roll the edges in and make sure everything is seating good on the rim. So that's what I like to do. You can do it your own way, but I'm gonna show you how I do it, and I think that this has always worked in my personal opinion. This will allow me to be able to follow this line all the way around the rim to make sure it's even all the way around. So for every 5 pounds, I'll just push it to make sure it is all rolled in nice. I like to pinch it together to make sure everything is seated perfectly. Give it a couple more pumps. I'll roll it the other way. Do the exact same thing. I feel like this is something I've just taken from my BMX and mountain bike days because it's just something I learned that I just always stuck with. Another reason why this actually really plays a factor is because if you're traveling at high rates of speed, you'll notice sometimes on tires they'll feel like they're bouncing. It's because they're not properly seated within the bead. That's what we're trying to get at right now. We're gonna max this out at 30. There's 30. And there she is, all complete, looking way more aggressive and mean. These tires definitely changed the overall look of this bike and the standover height. The standover height feel of this bike has definitely changed. Now I brought you guys out here to the original area that I test rode this bike with the Supermoto tires on. So now I have a good representation of what these tires feel like on road. I'm gonna do the exact same carving and turning, and then we're gonna take you off-road. Now comparing these to the stock Supermotos on the asphalt, I can tell you that it feels more of like a softer, plusher ride. I can feel the grip within each turn, but I would have to say that the Supermotos take the turns and feel like they want to get lower into the corners versus these. Like I said earlier, these are more of an off-road, all-terrain style tire. And with that being said, let's get this on the grass. My initial grass test, it feels really good. It feels like it really wants to grip to the surface. And this has actually got a bunch of early morning dew on the grass, which means it's a bit wetter than I was expecting out here. I also did ride my stock Supermotos on this same terrain, and I can already tell you these tires feel way grippier and more nimble on a grass terrain. Now putting on gravel, it feels night and day compared to the Supermotos. The Supermotos are not meant to be on any gravel or dirt. And with that being said, these things handle the gravel like a dream, like they're supposed to. Now moving on to the dirt and sand, it really feels like that's what these tires were made for, and this bike feels really nimble with these tires on the dirt and sand. I think my next upgrade I'm really the most stoked on, which would be the handlebars and stem. It's gonna feel like a dream hitting jumps with this bad boy because the higher rise handlebars are gonna make it feel more nimble and a lot easier to maneuver in the air. So with that being said, let me talk to you guys about my final thoughts on these tires and where you guys can pick them up. So in closing, the Kenda K262 tires are a necessary upgrade on the Talaria XxX. The Supermoto tires that come on that are good if you're going to ride on road only, but if you plan on going off-road at all, swap them out and definitely look into these tires. I'll have them linked in the description below. Now with that being said, I'm going to be doing a bunch of different mods to this bike. The next one is going to be a full wrap. I'm going to be wrapping this myself. Nothing is going to be pre-cut, so definitely tune in for that video. If you have any suggestions for future things you want to see on the XXX, put them in the comments below. If you guys like this video, drop a like. If you love it, hit the subscribe button, and I'll catch you in the next one.